thanks for watching another episode of Baby Bump Life. The topic I would like to talk to you all about today is induction of labor. This is something that's happening more and more frequently, and I think too often moms are coming into the hospital, they're not sure what to expect, and they become a little nervous, and so I am here to talk to you about some of the ways that we can induce your labor in the hospital. So most hospitals, this depends on your state and the exact hospital that you're being induced at, but most of them you need to be at least 39 weeks. They're pretty sticklers on that unless it's medically necessary. So if you deliver before the 39 weeks, say maybe anywhere from 35 to 38 weeks, somewhere in there, the medical reasons are typically maybe you have high blood pressure and the doctor thinks it's safer for you and your body to deliver the baby earlier. Maybe your diabetes, you have gestational or type 1 or type 2 diabetes, and the doctor thinks that your sugars are starting to get a little out of control and it's safer for your body to deliver the baby now rather than waiting. Or it could be maybe reasons due to the baby. There's a problem with the placenta, or maybe the baby just isn't growing anymore and the doctor thinks that it's safest to just deliver right now. So thousands of different medical reasons. Those are probably some of the most common. And the doctor would decide to do an induction. So a couple different things that they can do, and it depends on where your cervix is at, and the doctor and nurses kind of collaborate on that together once you get to the hospital. For a first-time mom, your cervix is still pretty thick, long, and firm. If you have questions about the dilation and effacement and pelvic station, check out my other video that goes over all of that for you. But typically first-time moms, your cervix isn't very dilated, it's still pretty firm, it's long, and we need it to get to thin out, and then we need it to open up. So they typically start with some medications to get your cervix to thin out and to soften. Because it's so firm, we need it to soften or ripen first. So when you do get to the hospital, just keep in mind that this is going to be a fairly long process. Sometimes I see moms come in and they've got like a whole bunch of luggage with them. They've got grandma and auntie and everybody with them, not realizing that it can take up to 24 hours before we even get you into any active labor. So sometimes that's kind of a surprise when you get to the hospital. A lot of moms think like, oh, I'm going to be induced and have the baby a couple hours later. That is not how it works. It's not typical. Now, I did have a first-time mom do that a while ago for me, and I was shocked because that is not natural, especially for a first-time mom, for you to be induced and then all of a sudden, boom, go into labor like that. So it does take a while. Two of probably the most common medications that they can use. One is medication on an end of a string, and the medication gets tucked behind the cervix, and it softens or ripens the cervix. So if you think of like banana at the grocery store, right? It's green, it needs to soften before it's ready for you to enjoy it. Same thing with your cervix. We need it to soften, we need it to ripen before we expect it to open up and dilate. So that's what Cervidil does. So medication on the end of a string, it gets tucked behind the cervix and it helps to ripen the cervix. That goes in and typically stays in for 12 hours. Yes, 12 hours. So nothing's going to happen. Your family is going to sit there and just watch your cervix ripen. Typically, you don't even feel a lot of anything. You may feel some cramping, like menstrual cramping. It can kick you into labor. Is that very often? No, it's not very often. Do moms sometimes have to have 2 of those? Yeah, I've seen that where moms have 2 of those. So 12 plus 12 is 24. That's 24 hours of just kind of sitting in the hospital. So it does work. It is a great medication, but just keep in mind that it can take a while. That's one of the most common things that moms think, oh, this is going to be easy peasy. We're going to get this done right away. And then boom, we talk about Cervidil, and right away everything is thrown off. Every plan that you had for this this beginning of your labor just gets like tossed out the window. So keep that in mind with that medication. The other medication that can be used is a pill form, and the pill is just tucked behind the cervix. Then, depending on the doctor's orders, typically 4 hours later, the nurse will check the cervix again, see if there's any change, and if not, they'll place another one of those. Now, depending on the doctor, it can take a couple hours for that as well. You can have sometimes up to 4 or 6 doses of that, and having it every 4 hours. So that medication can take a while too. So those 2 medications are typically the first ones that they start out with in the hospital. Once we've got your cervix softened and we're getting into the right direction, then we can use different medications. We can break your water. So that's the next step of the induction, is using a medication called Pitocin. So what is Pitocin? Pitocin is a synthetic or a drug form of oxytocin. Oxytocin is a hormone that we have in our bodies, and it gets released when we do love things. And having a baby is a love thing, so this oxytocin gets secreted during labor. When we're trying to induce your labor, we're trying to tell your body to start secreting this oxytocin, so we give it just a little bit of this Pitocin through your IV until your body gets the hang of it and you start secreting oxytocin, and it makes your contractions stronger and closer together. It also helps your cervix to dilate. So the beginning steps, we got it to soften and thin out. Now we're getting it to the opening part with the Pitocin. So that's one step that we can do. Something else that we can do, depending on your physician and your baby's placement to your cervix, they could do artificial rupture of membranes, which is just breaking your bag of water. That doesn't hurt unless, you know, a cervical exam kind of hurts you. It's the same thing. Breaking the bag of water is just tissue there, so it doesn't hurt. They use a little plastic hook, break the bag of water, and that tends to get labor progressing a little more as well. So those are the steps into induction. I will go over in another video here about natural ways to induce your labor at home, but those are some ways that you can do it in the hospital, or some of the ways that are ordered by the physicians or midwives in the hospital, but it all depends on you and your health history, the baby's position, and what your cervix is doing. Sometimes moms who've had a baby before, they could be induced with skipping the beginning steps and just a Pitocin, because their cervix has done this before. It's already a little bit soft, it knows what to do. But for first-time moms, typically we start with those other 2 medications that I told you about. Then we move our way either to the Pitocin or to breaking your bag of water. So I hope that helped you guys a little bit. Please leave any comments below and I would be happy to answer your questions. And as always, please ask your physician or nurse midwives if you have any questions about being induced, if it is medically necessary, and just making sure that you are doing what's best for you and for your little baby. Alright guys, until next time, thank you for watching, and I will talk to you all very soon. Thanks, bye!